Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 201. You know, something about that number, it doesn't sound really very impressive, but hey, welcome to 201 anyway. Want to thank you guys for tuning in once again. Appreciate you guys taking time and all the work you've been doing out there on behalf of the Moose Podcast. Thank you so much. I want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera, bedfords.com, for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. Well, you might be asking what they do for me this last week. Well, hey, I needed the Z24-200, the brand new one. Boom, got here. I'm telling you, they get the product, they get it out, it's in my hands. What else? And a great price. What else can we want for, service when it comes from a camera store? So bedfords.com, folks, and where you go to the website, you call them up, you tell them that Moose sent you to get that Moose discount and that Moose pricing, and you guys will come out ahead. Lower price, no sales tax for most states, shipping free over $99. Bedfords.com, folks. And Photocon is coming. Make sure you check on the link. Let's get right to this week's podcast. Is it enough? Is it enough? You know, for a long time, I've wondered how a lot of musicians, really successful ones, like Elton John or Paul McCartney or the list goes on, how they went for eons producing hit after hit, great song after great song, ones we all enjoy, no matter who the artist is. And then all of a sudden, they stop. They don't produce continual albums. They don't, it's like, well, what happened? Did a switch go off? Just what was a scenario that they produce, and now not so much? And then I wonder if they have come to a realization that perhaps eludes us other creatives. And they just wondered, is it enough? As in, have they created enough that will carry on their legacy, their style, their message? Have they figured out the answer to, is it enough? And they have, and they decided it was, so they're not doing it as they used to. Now, what might this have to do with photography? Well, I was bopping along and hearing a story about an artist, painter, did charcoal as well. And they, in their travels as a artist, thinking about things, creating pieces, they realize while they're alive that the accolades they thought they wanted or needed weren't coming through. And so they just pondered to themselves and in their writings, which is how it was on NPR, I believe it was, that, did they do enough while they're alive, not only to create those pieces and spread that out, but to satisfy them and knowing that when they passed away, that would still be out there, even though they are not present with us anymore. Their work is. And it just got me to wondering, in this particular day and age, and perhaps in these particular times when we all seem to have a lot of time on our hands, for better or worse, if what we're producing, if we are satisfied with it, that without perhaps looking for all those likes and loves and putting it on Instagram and all the blog posts and things like I do a lot, is it enough just to sit there and create that content that it will outlive ourselves and make a mark? And is knowing that our work will outlive us, is that enough to keep us to go out shooting continually and sharing our photographs further and further. And that's really kind of the point, again, for myself, is that sharing our images. Had a couple of things this past week. I did a great podcast with Shamira and Skip Cohen, which will come out this coming week. Bunch of posts on some forums. And it came down to, as photographers, whether you are a noted photographer or you're not, whether you want to be, okay, or you don't. And there's a lot of photographers, and they say it quite often, I don't want to make money with my pictures. I just want to make some money. I don't want to be a professional, but I just want to get rich. And there's some who honestly just want to, not talking about those folks. I'm talking about the ones who just enjoy it, and they want to figure out how to get that enjoyment, I guess you could say, to live longer in their soul and their spirit by getting those photographs to perhaps a bigger audience. And that audience, how do you obtain that audience? Is it a brick and mortar gallery? Is it a website? Is it a huge Instagram following? And then in that process, is it enough? I mean, how do you figure out an answer to is it enough? It's not like I have a final big ta-da moment in this podcast. I'm actually throwing out a question that perhaps it might make you think about your own work. I know it's been making me think about my own this past week. Is it enough to know that you've taken a photograph that lots and lots of people enjoy, perhaps made a difference in our world, but that's all. That's all you know. You don't have any other indication, no financial reward, no contest reward, no industrial community award. It's just that quiet knowledge that that photograph made a difference, and you're taking it, you're sharing it, maybe sharing it over and over again, made a difference. Is that enough? Because as photographers, and I run into it quite often, had an email just before I started the podcast, and basically they were looking for more from their photography than, well, perhaps photography has to offer them. That happens a lot. I see a lot of photographers who perceive certain things. They look at, I'll use myself for example, my photographs, and this particular person had been watching my Instagram stream, and he looked at those photographs and he thinks that it's kind of like my mom when I became self-employed, quote unquote, way back in when I was 22, 23 years old. And she would tell all her friends, because they'd say, well, what's he up to? And he goes, oh, he's retired and he just travels around, takes pictures. That was how my mom equated, working my butt off to be a photographer. And some people look at that, my Instagram stream, this particular writer looked at it and kind of got the impression that somebody just pays for me to live, and all my camera gear and my food and my rent, and I just go around, I just take pictures of whatever I want, when I want, how I want, which it couldn't be further from the truth. And they want to know, how do you do that? Is that enough? Just traveling around taking pictures. And of course, I don't just travel around and take pictures. This photographic pursuit that we are on, no matter if you are just a hobbyist or serious or a professional, there is a lot that goes into that pursuit. And at some point, you do have to earn the money to get into that pursuit. And just from that point of view, you're going to constantly say, is that enough? Because it takes money. I hate that old business saying it takes money to make money. Yeah, you could easily change and say it takes money to make photographs. And in that, you're going to ask the constantly say, is it enough? You go out shooting, for example, you go out photograph critters. And I have met many a photographer who says, yeah, I got that picture, and they don't do anything more. And the other end of the extreme is myself, who constantly keeps shooting critters that he's got already. I have tens of thousands of photographs of that critter in my files, and I still go out and shoot more. And in that process, looking for the best, my favorite, the one that'll make the biggest impact. And you have to constantly say in that process, is it enough? So it's a question that you could use to totally limit the way you do business, take pictures, you travel, pursue photography. You can use it as a way of slowing down, stopping yourself. On the flip side, you could use it as a way of constantly keeping that door open, constantly keeping you shooting, and constantly striving to move that ball forward by just saying, is it enough? And in the bigger sense, in the message of the podcast is in that obtaining that success, whatever that success is you're looking for, or how you want to measure that success, that reward. Is it enough just to know that you took the photograph and you shared it? Is that enough for you to go out the next day and do it again? It's a hard thing to do as a photographer. If, for example, if there's a ton of stuff on my mind and it's not photographically, spinning my wheels. There's other things, as life goes, as you might know. Then there's times when picking up the camera is really difficult because it just doesn't feel instinctive, creative, rewarding. It feels like I'm actually, escaping and dodging the real problems I should be dealing with. It doesn't work. There are other times where it just can't get enough. I don't even want to go to sleep sometimes. I want to keep out shooting. You've got to constantly ask yourself in this process, what's kind of like the end game? And is that end game going to be enough? Is your roadmap, your set of goals, is it enough? And it's a question I think that you should use, is it enough, as one to broaden your scope, not to limit it, to broaden it. Ask yourself, and I know right now there's going to be a husband or a wife listening to this, and their spouse is next to them, and they're going to hear me saying, is it enough? And they're going to go, okay, that's not a license for you to go buy camera gear. That's not what he's saying. Is it enough? Okay, because we all know we're photographers, right? There's never enough camera gear. So I'm not talking about that particular aspect of photography. I'm talking about the clicks, the final photograph and sharing. All I want to leave you with is the fact that when it comes to photography, is it enough? Doesn't apply to sharing because it's never enough. Because we can really change our world with our clicks. So other than that, keep asking yourself, is it enough? Well, we're starting to move a little bit towards that end of summer. The light is about to change. Equinox is coming up. The shadows will get longer. Critters are getting ready for winter. I know it seems a little early to think about that. But as you plan your photography coming up, think about those aspects, perhaps getting ready to tell that story. Remember, there's lots of resources on the website. Oh, yeah, speaking about the website, it's got a life of its own. I don't know what it's doing. It's creating its own HTML tagging, and so if you go to the website and sometimes it looks glitchy or something weird, my apologies. My vast team is sitting there in the basement working on it day and night, trying to get it fixed, and we will hopefully have the site dealt with here, sometime in the future. So my apologies for any inconvenience, but the information is there. Remember, you can reach out to me in many different ways. And when you're out there shooting, make every click your story.